senior level leadership at The Ohio State University knowingly and intentionally failed to provide a safe environment for children, our children. I was assaulted by Dr. Richard Strauss for the first time as a 14-year-old freshman at Bishop Reed High School on the west side. Strauss was authorized by the Catholic Church, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and The Ohio State University to conduct body fat tests. We were told that a prominent Ohio State sports physician was going to work with our team, and I recall feeling a sense of pride. The Ohio State University had chosen us. We were special. I also recall being told by my older brothers, who were members of the Ohio State wrestling team, that Strauss, quote, enjoyed examining male genitals. It was a running joke in my family and the Ohio State wrestling community and the athletic department as a whole. A nervous joke. And it was just that. I was very nervous heading into the private coach's office where Strauss was prepping to abuse dozens of prepubescent male athletes. According to reports from the firm entrusted to investigate this matter, athletes from over 16 sports have come forward to detail their abuse by Dr. Richard Strauss. This was not a study. It was a premeditated plot by a deviant male predator to assault children.
Ohio State is sick. Sick. Abuse? Come on now. Turns out Ohio State was the one that got abused yesterday, though. How does it feel? Does it hurt? I know it does. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Welcome to the Your Season is Over video, Week 7 edition, the Point and Laugh college football recap every Sunday, unless there's a hurricane, right here on YouTube during the college football season. We're going to jump right into it today. Yesterday was a great day of college football, no doubt, no question about it. Great games, great endings, overtimes, crazy plays, crazy endings, everything you could want. It was not a great day for the Your Season is Over video. Now, each of the last 2 weeks were, but unfortunately, I was unable to do the Your Season is Over video the last 2 weeks because no power and no internet. But all that is fixed now. We're back at it. Not very many of the actual losses were that funny, honestly. The funniest part about yesterday really was the part, and you know, I do the part on the Your Season is Over video every week where I do teams that won but looked bad. I mean, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, those were the funniest fourth quarters yesterday. Now, all three of those teams ended up winning. Georgia was never really in doubt of losing. It's just Mississippi State's a terrible team, and it shouldn't have been that close. And we'll talk about that when we get to that part of the video. But Alabama and Tennessee both came extremely close to losing their games. The old LSU Ole Miss game was unbelievable if you stayed up and watched that one. Of course, the Oregon-Ohio State game, just an unbelievable ending. Even the Colorado and Kansas State game. I mean, I guess it's always funny when Colorado loses, but even that was a great game. Colorado takes the lead late. Kansas State then retakes the lead. Colorado's marching down the field. They throw the interception. So a lot of great games, a lot of great football, a lot of great individual performances. But, of course, that's not what we talk about here. We talk about the losers. So I guess we'll go in order. Let's start with Colorado today. Colorado lost again. I say again, it's only their second loss of the season. So that puts them at 4-2. Yeah, 4-2, I guess. So I'm one game off. I had them at 3-3 at this point in the season. They're actually 4-2, but they did lose to Kansas State. It's the same problems over and over again, and they're not going to get any better because they haven't been addressed. Anyway, they had negative 29 yards rushing in the entire game. I mean, absolutely pitiful. 6 sacks. And yeah, Shedeur got sacked a bunch of times, but it's not like the running backs had 50 yards. The running backs were terrible too. And here's the thing with Shedeur, and I think he's a great quarterback and he's going to be drafted in the first round, blah, 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 all that. He's a great quarterback. When he gets sacked, it's not a 5-yard sack. When he gets sacked, it's like a 10 or a 15-yard sack. Like it almost, I've made this analogy before about mobile quarterbacks when they come into college. In high school, elite mobile quarterbacks are generally able to run circles around the defense. They can run 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, one sideline to the other, look downfield, make a throw after scrambling around for 20 seconds, right? In college, you can't do that. And for whatever reason, it's like Shedeur hasn't been able to figure that out yet. He still thinks he can outrun everybody, and it just doesn't happen. So when he gets under pressure, instead of stepping up in the pocket, he tends to spin backwards, run backwards, that kind of thing. And a lot of his sacks end up being disastrous sacks. But they lost 31-28 to Kansas State. Kansas State still just with the one loss. Now it was a complete beatdown at the hands of BYU. We're going to talk about sort of the playoff picture at the end of the video. I've got a list, you know, like undefeated teams, 1-loss teams, 2-loss teams, or we're going to start marking some, you know, the Your Season is Over video doesn't mean your season is over. I've been over this a million times. Going on the Your Season is Over list just means you lost yesterday, but I do think there are some teams we can eliminate from the playoffs at basically at the halfway point through the season here. Most teams have played 6 games. So there's some teams I think we can cross off the list, some of which were on people's preseason playoff watch list, so we'll get to that at the end. But Colorado, your season was over before it ever started. Shedeur was 34 of 40, 388 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. He continues to be a good quarterback and put up ridiculous numbers. Whatever problem anybody has with Colorado can't have anything to do with the way Shedeur plays, surely. He's a good quarterback. Will it translate to the NFL? I don't know. We'll find out. I'm not an NFL guy. There's a lot of quarterbacks I watch play in college that are really good and go on to flop in the NFL. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks in the NFL that I didn't even know existed in college because either they were on bad teams or they weren't all that great statistically or whatever the case. So being good at one or bad at the one doesn't necessarily mean you'll be one or the other in the NFL. But Shador's going to get a shot there, and I think he deserves it, and I think he's earned it. He's the best player, second best player on a really bad team. Travis Hunter, of course, the best player, and he got injured yesterday. I hate that. But look, he's playing 2 seasons in one. This is what he's doing because he's playing both sides of the ball almost every single snap, 110, 120, 130 snaps a game. And while that's great and it's fun for us to watch as fans, there's a reason that doesn't happen. And, a big part of the reason is most people aren't good enough to do it. So, again, hats off to Travis Hunter. He's probably the best or second best player in college football. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the Heisman list. But because he's playing on both sides of the ball almost every single play, he's really playing 2 games a week, if you think about it. And injuries are very common in college football, and no one likes them. But he is basically putting himself at twice the risk of getting injured as your average player because he's playing both ways, which translates to playing twice as many snaps. And he had the injury last year and injured again yesterday. It appeared to be something with his shoulder. They took him to the locker room. He came back out, but no helmet and didn't play the rest of the game. I hope he's okay. I love watching great college football players play college football, and Travis Hunter's a great college football player. And this is the last year we're going to get to see him in college. He's gone off to the NFL after this year, I'm sure. How about Shiloh Sanders? Shiloh Sanders, did y'all see the play where he got juked by DJ Giddens? Is that his name? The running back for Kansas State, who ran all over Colorado, by the way. He had over 100 yards in the first half. That guy did. Giddens, the running back for Kansas State. I still like their quarterback, too, Kansas State, Avery Johnson. He's no Shedeur Sanders, but I really like him. Anyway, he put a move on Shiloh Sanders. He handoff basically right up the middle. Shiloh plays safety. So he got, 10, 12 yards downfield, and Shiloh was standing there, and he put a move on Shiloh. I think Shiloh's still looking for his jock strap. Anyway, Colorado, your season's over again. Who's next on the list? Ole Miss. We'll go Ole Miss. What a great game this was. Unbelievable game. Again, is it funny that they lost? It's bad that they lost because that's their second loss. And we're going to get to that at the end of the video when we talk about some potential playoff teams. They now have 2 losses at the halfway point of the season. Not good. They have the Kentucky loss from a couple of weeks ago. Of course, they rebounded last week with a big win on the road against South Carolina. But this week, overtime, they lose to LSU. Unbelievable ending to this game. LSU never led this game. Is that right? Until they took the lead. Where's this? Where's my notes at on this game here? Did I even make notes? Yeah. 26-29, of course, in overtime. It was a great game. Nussmeier goes down, throws a touchdown with next to no time left on the clock at all, really, to send that thing to overtime. And then LSU ends up winning it in overtime. Great game. But a second loss for Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, and Jackson Dart. I seen an interview with Jackson Dart. I think it was this morning when I saw it. One of the beat reporters, I guess, for Ole Miss was interviewing him in the locker room after the game, and he kind of had his head down and a hoodie on. And, he looked up and he's just like, we got to win out from here. And he's right. In order to make the playoffs, they've got to win out. They do. But how about LSU still just with 1 loss? LSU and Texas A&M. They both lost in week 1. LSU lost to Southern Cal. Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame. Everybody wrote them off, myself included. And I'm still not convinced either one of them are elite or even playoff teams. But here they are sitting with 1 loss. They got to both be probably in the top 15 by now, I would assume. I haven't looked at the new AP poll that came out today. But halfway through the season, sitting with 1 loss. They each have a good win at least. LSU's got the win now over Ole Miss. Texas A&M has the win, of course, over Missouri from a couple of weeks ago. Missouri rebounded on the road at UMass. What is Missouri doing playing on the road at UMass? No one knows. I don't know, and nobody knows. But they did, and of course they humiliated them. But Ole Miss 26-29 in overtime. Let's see. Ole Miss scored 0 touchdowns in the first quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and overtime. This Lane Kiffin offense, Jackson Dart, Heisman candidate, I know their receivers, they got issues or whatever, but breaking news, it's halfway through the season. Every team in the country is suffering with injured players. So, there ain't going to be no pity party because you were missing a player or two. Now, I feel sorry for injured players because it means they can't play. Of course, I don't want anybody to get injured, but every team in the country has injured players. That's why you've got 85 scholarships, okay, and not 22. But no touchdowns. The only quarter they scored in was the second quarter. Now they kicked some field goals. I'm talking touchdowns here. They were held out of the end zone in the first quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and of course overtime. LSU had the game tying touchdown, converted a 4th and 6 or 8 on that drive too. It looked like the game was over. Had Ole Miss stopped LSU on that 4th down there at the end of regulation, the game would have ended, but they converted a 4th down. They go down and score with almost no time left on the clock, sends it to overtime, and LSU ends up winning like we said. Nussmeier, 22 of 51, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. LSU only had 84 yards rushing, couldn't run the ball, so that's why Nussmeier had the monster day that he did. I want to talk about the LSU situation with faking injuries. The Ole Miss situation with faking injuries. Now, I say the Ole Miss situation. I've seen lots of teams do it. Maybe even every team. No one is doing it on the level of Ole Miss, though. And they've been called out now by the conference office. Now, this came up yesterday on during one of the live streams I was doing. It's like, why doesn't, the referee should call a penalty, or the referee should take a timeout away if they do it. The referees have zero ability to do anything about a player, quote unquote, faking an injury. In fact, a referee is not even allowed to ask or try to ascertain if an injury is real or fake. There's just nothing in the rule book anywhere that gives any referee the ability to do that. So as of now, anyway, that's not an option. The way it works, in the SEC specifically, because every conference has their own rules. In the SEC, if you play a game and at the end of the game, you feel like the other team was quote unquote faking injuries, you're to send the video to the league office. The league office will review it and they'll go from there. They could potentially hand out fines or whatever, or even suspensions, whatever the case might be, to the team that's doing it. And the league office has been notified multiple times this season about Ole Miss. They have looked into it. They have contacted Ole Miss. They have talked to Lane Kiffin and that coaching staff and the athletic department. But I want you to listen to this. LSU has had 29 injuries resulting in stoppage of play in their last 4 games against Power 4 opponents. So they're not getting injured against Group of 5 teams that they're beating by 100. That's not when this is happening. 29 times in the last 4 games that Ole Miss has played against Power 4 opponents. 29 times the game has been stopped due to an apparent Ole Miss injury. And of course, the players are right back in the game. They have to sit out the one play and then miraculously they're healed and they're right back in the game. I don't think you will ever be able to prove in the world of college football that somebody is faking an injury. A cramp, for example, can be completely and 100% debilitating for a very short period of time. And once the cramp is over, you're good to go. We've all had cramps before. I've had them. I get them in my feet sometimes at night when I'm trying to go to sleep. They're painful. It's crippling pain. You're never going to be able to really prove, I don't think, the team is faking injuries. The closest you're going to be able to come, and there's examples of this, not just with Ole Miss, but specifically with Ole Miss, the player trying to call timeout and the referee doesn't see it, so all of a sudden he falls on the ground and grabs his knee. Or looking over to the sideline and the coach literally doing this, and the guy falls on the ground. So it's the kind of thing where, we're not 100% sure, but we're sure that Ole Miss is faking injuries. Again, it's not just Ole Miss. It just happens to be that Ole Miss is in the news for it this week. And then this stat came out here. It blew my 29 injuries for Ole Miss requiring stoppage of play in their last 4 games against Power 4 opponents. Come on, man. Come on. Stop with the faking the injuries. Y'all got to let that go. You won't be faking any injuries in the playoffs. I can promise you that, Ole Miss. You got 2 losses halfway through the season. So forget the your season is over point and laugh video. No playoffs for you. You're not running. I'm going to get to this at the end, but if you've got 2 losses halfway through the season, you're not running the table. Especially not in the SEC. So just forget it, Ole Miss. Now for Florida, potentially good news here. Lane Kiffin to Gainesville picking up steam as we speak. All right, LSU or Ole Miss, your season's over. Utah. I am so disappointed in Utah as a team and Cam Rising in particular. And yes, I know that he suffered yet another injury on, I think it was the first Utah possession of the game, but this guy's been in college 7 years, Cam Rising. This is his 7th year. Somehow he still has another year of eligibility next year too, which is just completely mind-boggling. But he's been out for like 3 weeks with a cut finger or whatever. He slammed it in a water cooler on the sideline, whatever. Okay, been out 3 weeks. He was out all of last year. He played the first couple of games this year. Then he had the finger deal. He was out for 3 weeks. Well, triumphant return this past weekend for our buddy Cam Rising and Utah against a not very good Arizona State team. Now they're 5-1, so it might be time to reconsider what we thought about Arizona State. But nevertheless, it's a team Utah should be beating, and they didn't. Again, that's also Utah's second loss. No playoffs, probably. Look at the Big 12. They're going to eat each other alive. I don't see Utah running the table. Do you? They lost to Arizona State 27-19. Cam Rising was 16 of 37. That's Nico level bad. 16 of don't worry. I got a whole page of Nico stats for you coming up here. 16 of 37, 209 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions for a guy that's been in college for 7 years and has been starting for 4 or 5 years. It's completely unacceptable. And I don't know what his injury hurt, something he was limping around after the first possession or whatever. So for all I know, we won't see him again this year. I've always liked Cam Rising, so I'm not shitting on him. And again, I don't like injuries. Some people are just injury prone, and I don't know, maybe that's the case with Cam Rising. But Utah as a team, to me, very disappointing this year to already be sitting on 2 losses. They were the favorite to win the Big 12 in my mind heading into the season. Not the case anymore. 4-2, Arizona State improves to 5-1 Utah, and maybe even Cam Rising. Your season is over. Oh boy, this wagon wheel, forget tipping the wagon. This wagon wheel never even came out of the tunnel, literally. That's the best thing about that game being played at the Cotton Bowls. They don't let Oklahoma tow that stupid ass little house on the prairie wooden wheeled wagon down there and bring that thing out so we can tip over. But it doesn't matter. Oklahoma spent all 4 quarters yesterday tipping themselves over. This was an absolute beatdown in the Red River Shootout. 34-3. Texas gets revenge for an upset loss they took to Oklahoma last year. This game was never close. It was never in doubt. You could have watched this game. You could have watched the first 5 or 6 minutes of this game and seen right away how this was going to go. Texas was so much better in every area of the game than Oklahoma. It wasn't even funny. Oklahoma never had a chance. Their offense is absolutely horrendous, Oklahoma. To Jackson Arnold, he's still not playing. They got this other guy, this Hawkins or Dawkins or Hickory Dickory Dawkins, whatever the fuck his name is. He's absolutely terrible. Oklahoma had 148 pass yards for the entire game, 90 rushing yards. What is that? 230 yards total, basically 240 yards total. Pitiful. Texas had 229 passing, 177 rushing. Quinn Ewers, of course, got to start after being out for a few weeks and picked up right where he left off. Texas has dominated just about everybody they've played this year from start to finish in every game. You can find a quarter here and there where maybe they looked a little sluggish you really got to be nitpicking to find something with Texas at this point. They destroyed Michigan on the road in Ann Arbor. Now they've beat Oklahoma. Now they get Georgia next week, and we'll talk about that a lot this week, I'm sure. But Texas looks like the best team in the country right now. Again, something we'll talk about more at the end when I give you my list of best teams. But it doesn't look flukish. Hate Texas, love Texas. Feeling different about them, whatever. Watch them play. They look like one of, if not the best teams in the country right now. Texas absolutely loaded, 34-3. They just destroyed Oklahoma. Again, I guess it's funny because it's a rivalry game, and Oklahoma fans were so delusional in the offseason, weren't they? Oklahoma fans, Florida State fans, Tennessee fans. those three fan bases have a lot of explaining to do in terms of what they were saying in the offseason versus what we're seeing now that the games are being played. You remember right when the season was getting ready to start, it was getting like, the last week or two before football was starting. And I made a series of videos where I mentioned every single time we need the season to start because some of these fan bases are in desperate need of a giant heaving helping of reality. Oklahoma fans, Florida State fans, Tennessee fans were three of the fan bases in most desperate need of that reality. And all three of those fan bases have been served it by the shovel load. Florida State, of course, has disappeared off the face of the planet. One or two Florida State fans left floating around. That's it. They're not even on Twitter anymore. You know how bad it is for a fan base to disappear off Twitter? Just a cesspool of ineptitude, just where people hide behind anonymous accounts and no picture avatars and just say the worst things imaginable 24 hours a day. And they're so embarrassed and ashamed, they can't even come on there and anonymously try to prop up their own team. That's bad. They've disappeared out of most YouTube comment sections. I still have a few around here. There's still a few here and there. But my God, Florida State has completely disappeared, sitting on one win halfway through the season. They're just pathetic. Now, Tennessee still looks like a decent team, I think. We'll talk more about them in a little while. But all this stuff about Nico, oh, my God. Y'all look like the dumbest college football fans on the planet. If people didn't know anything about football and they started listening to Tennessee fans this offseason, they said, all right, I'm going to give college football a try. And they sat down and they started watching Tennessee. Boy, they'd think you were mentally retarded. Nico is bad. Forget not living up to the hype and the expectations that the idiot Voltards and Hilljacks had for him. He's not even what you would consider an average college quarterback at this point. We'll get to more than that in a minute. What was I even talking about? I don't even know how I went down this rabbit hole. And what was the other fan base? Florida State, Oklahoma fans, and shit. What was the other one? I forgot the third one now. Big dang. Anyway, reality. Boy, reality done slapped some of y'all silly. All right, so Oklahoma lost. Ohio State. Now, look. This was a hell of a game. And I've had a lot of fun over the years pointing and laughing at Ohio State when they've lost big games. And this was a big game. And it was, it's another loss. It's another big game loss for Ryan Day. He can't beat top 5 teams. He can't beat Michigan. He can't beat the SEC, blah, 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 on and on and on. I get all that. This was an unbelievable college football game. It's hard to find anything Ohio State did bad or wrong. These were two really good teams that both played really good games, honestly. It's similar in my mind to the Georgia-Ohio State game in the play. Sometimes you get two really good teams that play, right? But one team, for whatever reason, either they don't show up or the game plan is wrong or everything starts to go wrong or whatever. And it ends up just, not being that good of a game. And it looks like one team is way better than the other, even though that's not the case. That's not what happened in the Ohio State-Oregon game. These two teams both played really good, I thought. NFL players all over the field for both teams on both sides of the ball. And Oregon just ended up with one more point than Ohio State. Now, they're going to play again. Probably in the Big Ten title game. If not there, potentially in the playoffs somewhere. There's not 5 teams better than those two. Not the way they played yesterday. There's not 5 teams better than Ohio State and Oregon. So like I said, I haven't looked at any of the when I'm recording this, I don't even know if the AP poll has come out yet, but I don't know what they're going to do with Ohio State as far as the AP and the coaches poll. None of it really matters. The playoff polls don't come out for another month or more. I don't see how anybody can drop Ohio State out of the top 5 right now, unless you're solely basing your rankings on record, in which case you'd have to have Indiana and Pitt ahead of Ohio State. And I just don't think anybody in their right mind is going to do that. This was a great fucking game. Let's see what we wrote down. For the notes on this one. 32-31, Oregon gets the win. Listen to this. All right, Oregon, Dylan Gabriel, 341 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's pretty good. They also ran for 155 yards. They ran it good. They threw it good, Oregon. Ohio State, 326 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 141 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Ohio State ran the ball well. Ohio State threw it well. I think Dillon Gabriel was the better quarterback, but not because Will Howard played terrible. Dillon Gabriel's just a better quarterback than Will Howard. Now, if you're looking for something to point and laugh at the Ohio State fans about, maybe that's it. They thought they were getting some kind of diamond in the rough with Will Howard. Will Howard's been playing college football for a long time. We know who he is. It's like Florida State getting DJ Uiagalelei. Uncle Lulu. I'm DJ's ooey Uncle Lulu. Will Howard's a good quarterback with a room full of NFL wide receivers and NFL running backs. Now, you can win a lot of games with that. In fact, you can win national titles with it. You know, Georgia had Stetson Bennett. Michigan had J.J. McCarthy. Bama had Mac Jones. I mean, you don't have to have some kind of generational talent at quarterback to win a bunch of games, right? So I'm not knocking Ohio State as a team, but the back and forth over Dillon Gabriel's just a better quarterback than Will Howard. I mean, he just is. Is that the reason Oregon won the game? I mean, there is really no one reason, I don't think, that you can point to of why Oregon won and why Ohio State lost in terms of play on the field. Home field advantage has got to be worth something. It is worth something. And Oregon won by 1 at home. And I'm not taking anything away from Oregon because let's be real, Dan Lanning needed this win too. Because Dan Lanning's another one that's going to stack up a bunch of wins and has really nothing to show for it except losses to his rival, Washington, and nothing else really. So both coaches, you kind of felt like both coaches really needed this win just to kind of silence the critics a little. And I was fully prepared to come on and bury whichever coach lost this game. But if they played, let me ask you, if they played tomorrow, would the outcome be any different? Maybe Ohio State wins by 3. Maybe Oregon wins by 3. Maybe there's something, maybe one weird thing happens like a pick 6 or a kick return. So one team or the other wins by 7. But in other words, I won't say you got the best possible version of each of those teams because who knows, it's halfway through the season. Each team could still get better. But the point is, like as a college football fan, I watched that game and I said, these are 2 really good teams that are playing at an elite level right now. You go back, the Georgia-Alabama game, right? All the hype around that game. And then the first quarter happens. And you're like, well, fuck. What is this shit, right? That wasn't the case with Ohio State and Oregon. These 2 teams both showed up ready to go. They were prepared. They were well coached. They were motivated. They executed. One team just ended up with 1 point more than the other. And you look at Ohio State's schedule, they do have to play on the road at Penn State, and they play Nebraska, and then they have the Michigan game at the end. I don't know if any of those teams are beating the Ohio State team that I saw yesterday. At Penn State, I think, is clearly the most difficult of those 3. And honestly, Nebraska is probably number 2. Michigan's just not a very good team this year, so Ohio State gets them at home. They should roll them with little to no problem at all, I would imagine. But Ohio State could afford to drop one of those. A 10-2 Ohio State team is definitely getting into playoffs. A 10-2 Ohio State may still get in the Big Ten title game for a potential rematch with Oregon or whatever it is. But speaking of Oregon, look at their schedule. There's nothing on it. There's nothing on it. They don't play. They had to play Michigan. Michigan's not any good. They don't play Penn State. They play Washington and Illinois. That's about the 2 best teams left for Oregon, Washington and Illinois. Oregon was the only Power 4 team this preseason when I did my prediction videos that I predicted to go undefeated 12-0. Everybody else I had it at least 11-1. Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Penn State, whatever, however far down the list you want to go. I had everybody losing a regular season game this year except Oregon. Now, the way the first month of the season went, I thought I had it wrong. I thought maybe Ohio State would beat Oregon and then run the table. But turns out Oregon beat them, and it's hard to find a loss on Oregon's schedule right now. And they've got a tiebreaker over Ohio State. So you can pretty much, I think, pencil Oregon into the Big Ten title game at this point and into the playoffs because of that. Because even if they lose the Big Ten title game, I think they'd still go to the playoffs. But that was a hell of a game yesterday. And like I said, if you'd asked me yesterday what's going to be the kind of star of the show on the Your Season Is Over video Sunday, it's going to be, well, whoever shits the bed in that Ohio State-Oregon game, right? Neither team shit the bed. Those were two really good teams that played really good yesterday. I'm sounding like Josh Pate. Come here, Ohio State, man. Come here, Ohio State, man. Let me pat you on your head and tell you that even though you lost, everything is okay. Everything's gonna be fine, Mr. Sucknut Bucknut, man. I did sound like Josh Pate during that Ohio State soliloquy, but that's how I feel. I don't sugarcoat things. That's honestly how I feel. Two good teams there. It's getting dark in here. I have to turn the light on. Uncle Lou blind, can't see. Well, I can see, but just a little bit. Southern Cal, another one. Scratch them off whatever list you had them on. They're not making the Big Ten title game or the playoffs. Sorry, your season really is over if that was your goal. You lost again, this time at home to Penn State. Another great game, another overtime game. And are we going to give Penn State any credit at all for this win? My comment section was on fire at halftime. Yep, here we go, Penn State, overrated again, most overrated team in the country. Every year, most overrated team. Penn State's the most accurately rated team in the country almost every single year. Penn State's picked third in the Big Ten every year. They finished third in the Big Ten every year. They're the most accurately rated team in the country. So I don't know if y'all are going to give Penn State any credit or not. Now, here's what I will say, critical of Penn State in this game, even though they won. They gave a lot of yards on the ground, and they didn't get very many. They should have dominated They should have been able to dominate Southern Cal without throwing the ball. Instead, Drew Aller had a career day. Did I write his numbers down? They won 33-30 in overtime, Penn State then. Southern Cal blew a 14-point lead. They were up 14 points at halftime. Everybody was in my comments saying, oh, that's it, Penn State fired James Franklin. The whole deal, like they do every time, right? Of course, Penn State comes back and wins. You can't find those people now. Southern Cal now sitting at 3-3. Just forget them. Penn State improves to 6-0. How about, can we talk about ham hock for Penn State? I got to admit, I was no expert on this guy, but I am now. This is one of my new favorite players in all of college football. This guy looks like an offensive guard, but he plays tight end, number 44. Hell, they even let him throw a pass yesterday, and I think he completed it. But this guy set a record for tight end catches yesterday. I think he had 17 catches, just absolutely ridiculous. Southern Cal had no answer for this guy. Warren is his name. We called him Ham Hot. I mean, he literally looked like a bowling ball rolling down the field. I mean, but there's nothing they could do. Drew Aller, 391 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. That's what will get you beat. Beating Southern Cal is one thing. You got Ohio State coming to town in a few weeks. Turn the ball over 3 times against Ohio State. Let me know how that works out for you. Drew Aller. I think this is a good win for Penn State because it keeps people off James Franklin's back, but Southern Cal's not a great team. The best thing really you can say about Penn State here is that they were down 14 at halftime and didn't give up. They came back and found a way to win the game in overtime. Southern Cal. I don't know what in the fuck Lincoln Riley was doing. The last possession of did y'all watch this game? So Penn State scores to tie it up. They kick the ball off. Southern Cal gets the ball with 2 minutes left. That's an eternity in today's college football, people. An eternity. They get the ball back with 2 minutes left. All they need to do is kick a field goal to win the game. That's it, right? They get the ball back with 2 minutes left. Guess how many plays Southern Cal ran in the final 2 minutes of regulation? How many? Trying to get down the field to kick a game-winning field goal, right? Hurry up offense. Go, 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 go. How many plays did they run in the final 2 minutes? 5. They only ran 5 plays. Didn't use a single timeout. I've never in my life seen a team get the ball back tied 2 minutes to go and play for overtime. Go win the game, man. You're at home. You're sitting on 2 losses. Your season is literally on the line. Your season is literally on the line. 2 losses already you have. You're playing at home against a top 5 team. You've got them tied up. You've got the ball. 2 minutes to go. A field goal will win it. And you run 5 plays, call no timeouts, and go to overtime. And this idiot Lincoln Riley was asked about it after the game, and he goes, well, I didn't want Penn State to get the ball back with time left on the clock. Holy shit, man. Go down there and score. Huh. Of course, we go to overtime. Southern Cal right on cue misses a field goal. Isn't that what happened? There were so many overtimes yesterday, I started to get them confused. Yeah, USC missed a field goal. Unbelievable. Penn State tied the game 3 times. Penn State tied the game 3 times in the final 20 minutes of that game. So the third and the fourth quarter. They would tie it. Southern Cal would score. Penn State would tie it up. Southern Cal would score. Penn State would tie it up. I mean, it just went back and forth. It was a hell of a game. Again, so many of these. That's the thing about yesterday, guys. All of these games lived up to the billing yesterday. Almost all of them. The Texas-Oklahoma game was a massacre and a bloodbath. But the majority of these other quote-unquote big games that we all had circled for this weekend of college football, the majority of them lived up to the hype. And some that we didn't care about at all were amazing games. Alabama and South Carolina, Florida and Tennessee, which, of course, we'll get to. But Southern Cal, your season is over. You've now lost 3 games halfway through the season. That's it. No Big Ten title game, no playoff. Sorry. Try again next year, I guess. I don't know. We're retooling the defense. Start next year. We're taking it serious. Woo. Okay. Yeah. Well, rinse, repeat on that. Lincoln Riley been spewing that same line of bullshit since the day he became a head coach. Mississippi State. This will be quick. Mississippi State, 1 win. They're a 1-win team. They lost again. So they're whatever they are, 1-5 now, 1-6. They're probably the worst team in the SEC. But they just wouldn't give up, would they? They just wouldn't go away. They just wouldn't take no for an answer. My thoughts on this game is that defensively, Georgia was an absolute mess. No question about it. You get 300-something yards passing to a backup quarterback of a 1-win SEC team. Unacceptable. Better get that fixed sometime in the next 6 days, or Quinn Ewers in Texas is going to light your ass up. But to me, Georgia was up 17 in the third quarter. And I've watched a lot of Georgia games over the last 3 or 4 years where they're up 10, 13, 14, 17, something like that in the third quarter. And Georgia puts together one of these death march drives down the field, scores, wears your defense out in the process, now goes up by 20-something points, 3 scores, and it's over, and that's it, right? And it looked like that's what was happening yesterday. Georgia was up 17. They death march down the field. They get into the red zone. Carson Beck throws yet another interception in the end zone. Now, he had a reason as to whatever he saw this or he saw that. It's another interception. I don't care what the reason is. He had 2 interceptions yesterday. Now, the other one I will give him a break on. It was a batted ball at the line of scrimmage that went 50 feet up in the air and landed right in the arms of a Mississippi State player. So I'll give him a break on that one. But this one shouldn't have thrown it, and it wasn't a great throw. It was intercepted. So you're up 17. You throw an interception in the end zone. Even if you get a field goal there, you go up 20. You get a touchdown, you're now up 24. Instead, you throw the interception in the end zone, and what does Mississippi State do? They drive all the way down the field and score a touchdown. So in a matter of about 4 minutes, you went from potentially being up 24 points halfway through the third quarter and the game being over for all intents and purposes to only being up 10 and Mississippi State thinking they still had a chance. And, and then Georgia goes down and scores, and then Mississippi State scores. And then Georgia, so it went back with 10-17, 10-17, 10-17, both teams scoring. Mississippi State scored last, final score 41-31. So it was never a thing where you thought Georgia was going to lose the game, but you can't sugarcoat a 10-point win over a horrible Mississippi State team at home for Georgia, no less. And it's not like Georgia won 17-7. The defense was non-existent. I mean, players were getting torched down the field, deep passes. It was not good. It was not good. I haven't seen Georgia's defense play that bad probably since 2016. I don't think Georgia so Georgia gave up 31 points yesterday at home. I didn't look it up. I don't think Georgia has given up 31 points at home since the Tennessee game in 2016, where there were the back-to-back Hail Mary. Jacob Eason hit Ridley for a touchdown to take the lead with a minute and a half to go. Tennessee gets the ball back, and Dobbs then hits a Hail Mary to Juwan Jennings to win the game. I think that's the last time anybody scored 31 on Georgia and Athens, and Mississippi State did it yesterday. And that's concerning. And here's the issue. Heading into the Bama game, Georgia was playing Kentucky. I know they had a bye week, but I just mean that was the game before they played Bama, right? And when you look at the Kentucky game, Georgia defensively played great. The offense didn't show up. So you're not confident that going in, right? Well, now here you are getting ready to go on the road and play Texas, and the week before, where you should be beating up what is a dead body, Mississippi State, you don't. Your offense goes off. Carson Beck had a career day, 400 and something yards passing and a bunch of touchdowns. But your defense just never comes out of the tunnel. It was alarming. Look, I always take this as a bad sign when a helmet falls while I'm filming a video, especially when it falls for no real discernible reason. So it was hanging right there. And I don't really know. I don't know if there's ghosts in here, or that could be a bad sign for LSU, honestly. Am I going to be able to hang this up with the wrong hand? Kind of. We'll see if it falls back down again. But anyway, Mississippi State, your season's over, but valiant effort. They didn't give up. They fought to the end. 10-point loss. Georgia wins. South Carolina, helmet still upside down. They gave up 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks yesterday, whatever it was. Unbelievable game. South Carolina lost. My buddy Jackpot was at the game. I don't ever root for or against anybody. If I have money on a game, I'll root one way or the other based on that. But I didn't have any money on the Bama South Carolina. Well, I did a first half bet. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't have any money on the winner of the game. But Jackpot was there at the game, and boy, he's been through the ringer as a South Carolina fan. So when it got late in that game and it looked like South Carolina had a chance to win it, I wasn't necessarily rooting for South Carolina to win, but I sure was rooting for Jackpot to get to see what would have been a huge South Carolina win. And of course, it didn't happen. But they certainly had their chances. I mean, they go down there and score. They 2-point conversion to try to tie it up, and that's no good. They had a receiver open in the middle of the end zone. I guess Urkel didn't see him, tried to throw it to a different receiver, sailed it over his head, and you're thinking, well, there's their chance. There's only like a minute to go, and they had a chance to tie it up with a 2-point conversion, and they blew it. Then they line up for the onside kick, and they fucking get the onside kick. I couldn't believe it. And you're thinking, they only need keep in mind they're down 2. You recover an onside kick, you basically you got the ball basically midfield at that point. You don't need but like 15 yards to attempt a game-winning field goal. Couldn't get to 15 yards. End up having to basically chunk the ball down the field. It gets intercepted. Game over. So hard to come on here and laugh about South Carolina. I mean, they're having a bad season. Well, are they, though? Yeah, I mean, record-wise, they are. That would have been a monumental win for Carolina, but holy shit. If Bama would have lost that game, Kalen DeBoer would have had to go into hiding. I'm just telling you, there would have been people waiting at his house when he got home after that game. I don't know what in the world is going on with Alabama. I have my thoughts about it. I think some of it is related to lack of respect for the coach. I don't know who's in charge of that team. I can't get over the end of the Vandy game. The Malachi Moore shit from the Vandy game. Can you imagine a player doing that with Nick Saban there? If for some reason you don't know what I'm talking about, Vandy, of course, beat Bama a couple of weeks ago. And at the end of the game, Vandy had the ball and was basically getting into victory formation and just taking knee. And their quarterback, Pavia, runs. He gets tackled by Malachi Moore. Malachi Moore comes up, grabs him by the face mask, shakes him, pushes his head into the ground. Just poor sportsmanship, right? The referee gets the ball. They go spot the ball for Vandy to snap it for victory formation. Malachi Moore walks up, kicks the ball. Kicks the fucking ball basically out of the referee's hand. They throw another penalty flag on him. And finally, Alabama defensive coordinator Kane Womack said, well, I've seen enough. He sends a player in for Malachi Moore. Keep in mind, there's 30 seconds left in the game. The game's over. And Vandy's just trying to take a knee and get out of there. This Malachi Moore's having a fucking hissy fit like a goddamn toddler who got his Rattler taken away. or something, or got his fucking Binky Williams. Here's what we need. We need one of these from Malachi Moore. Lost to Vandy. Anyway, so Kenny Womack sends a player in to just sub Malachi Moore out. Just get him out of there. He's lost it. He's mad because we're going to take a loss to Vandy and he's losing his cool. Go in there, get Malachi Moore. Yeah. Well, anyway, Malachi Moore standing in the game. The guy runs out and tells him, "Hey, sub in and out." He looks the guy. He looks the player in the face and goes, "No, you get out. I'm staying out here. You get off the field." The substitute player turns around. Okay. Substitute player turns around, walks off the field. Kenny Womack then walks 5-6 yards out onto the field and is yelling at Malachi Moore, "Get off the field. Get off." Malachi Moore saying, "No, make me," basically is what he's saying. Kalen DeBoer then walks up behind Kenny Womack and is doing this to Malachi Moore. Malachi Moore saying, no. And guess what Kenny Womack and Kalen DeBoer did? Tucked their tail back between their pussy lips, turned around and walked their happy asses back to the sideline. Okay, well, Malachi Moore says he's not coming off the field. I guess he's not coming off the field. Okay. Who's in charge? Who's in charge of that team? I can't think of a coach in the country that would allow that. I can't think of any players in the country that would even try that with their coach. That is such a lack of respect for your coaches. I almost couldn't believe it was happening. Unbelievable. That was 2 weeks. And then they come out yesterday and the same thing. Their defense can't stop South Carolina. They got Urkel running around making throws. Jalen Mildew's turning the ball over like it's last year. I don't know what in the world is going on with Alabama, because the Alabama that I saw play the first half against Georgia would have a chance against anybody in the country. But that's the only point this season I've seen that team. Definitely didn't see it against South Florida. I think they looked good on the road against Wisconsin. That's probably the second best they've looked. On the road at Wisconsin. On the road at Wisconsin, they looked good. First half against Georgia, they looked good. Second half against Georgia, they couldn't get a first down. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. The entire Vandy game last week. Now the entire South Carolina game. And yeah, they got the win. But come on, you watched the game. That was terrible. I'm not even shitting on Alabama. I think they're a really good team. In fact, spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you at halfway through the season, I'm going to give you my conference championship game matchups, who I think is going to the conference championship. I think Bama's going to the SEC title game. So I'm not saying any of this to shit on Bama. They won the game, but I mean, look, I've talked to Bama fans last night, today, both, on the internet, on the phone, text message, all that. I know the Bama fans that are watching right now, you agree with me. What is going on? It's hard to understand. It is hard to understand. South Carolina, you lost, season's over again. Whoopity-doo. Boy, a lot of people pulling for Florida yesterday because they thought it would save Billy Napier's job. It's always a weird situation to be in as a fan when you want your coach fired. I've told this story before, but going back to 2015, when I finally made the decision that I was done supporting Mark Richt and I was in support of a coaching change. It came early in the season in 2015 after a loss to Alabama, go figure, right? And you had Georgia fans talking. They're like, if we lose this game and this game, they're going to fire him. Okay. Well, the Georgia Tech game comes around, and there's a lot of talk about if he loses this game, he could be fired. If he wins this game, probably going to bring him back. And I wanted Rick fired. I could not pull myself to root for Georgia to lose, though. But I do know fans that have been in similar situations, and so it's a weird situation Florida fans are in, because I think they know Billy Napier's not the answer long term. And once you come to that decision, prolonging that is a waste of time, right? But when you're watching that game yesterday as a Florida fan, you can't help it, right? Of course you were pulling for Florida to pull that thing out yesterday if you're a Florida fan, weren't you? Of course you were. Now, they didn't do it, so the point is moot. It doesn't matter now. He's most likely still getting fired probably around Halloween, like I've always thought. But this was a great game, and again, is it funny that Florida lost to Tennessee? I guess. Florida's now, 17-2 against Florida in the last 19 years? Florida is now 17-2 against Tennessee. Only lost to them twice. But just like with Georgia and Mississippi State and Alabama and South Carolina, this game is not about Florida losing. It's about how Tennessee won. Tennessee doesn't look very good to me. And really the only thing they have to prop themselves up is 70-point wins against terrible teams. And you know how I feel about those types of games. I don't put any stock into them at all. Zero, none. I don't think you're better if you beat Chattanooga 70-0 than if you beat them 45-10. It doesn't tell me anything. Nothing. It tells me Tennessee needs to schedule more Chattanoogas because ever since they stopped playing the Chattanoogas, they can't score. They can't get a first down. They struggled against Oklahoma. They lost to Arkansas last week. They should have lost to Florida yesterday. Graham Mertz got hurt and went out in the second half. Florida's running back got hurt, went out in the second half. They had no answer for Montrell Johnson when he was in the game at running back. Now, Florida's got 85 scholarships, so guess what they did? They put another player in, and that's what you have to do. But Tennessee was lucky to win that game. Nico is, forget not being elite and all that. He's not even average. What is he doing? And you're starting to see a similar thing here that you saw at Oklahoma last year. Remember last year, Oklahoma's defense was terrible. The offense was amazing. But they love Brent Venables. He's the answer. He's the savior. So they refused in their mind to blame anything at all on the defense. It had to somehow be the offense's fault, even though they were scoring 45 points a game. Something similar is starting to go on with Tennessee. They're now blaming the play caller at Tennessee and their left tackle and their right tackle. They're basically blaming anything other than Nico. And I'm not here to tell you that Tennessee's play caller is good, great, bad, terrible, or somewhere in between, or anything about the offensive line either. But Nico, I am here to tell you that Nico ain't very good. Maybe he'll get good at some point down the road, but boy, he ain't it now. And y'all spent an awful lot of energy this offseason, really for 2 years, since the time y'all signed Nico for $8 million. This is what you're getting for $8 million. He's a freshman. Well, he's been there 2 years, man. He's been there 2 years. There's lots of freshmen that play football. Nico is terrible. Tennessee's got a great running back, Dylan Sampson. Now, they don't have anything behind him. Nothing. Not a soul. It's Dylan Sampson, and then it falls off a cliff. And they've still got a pretty good defense, particularly the front seven. No question. I don't have anything bad, negative. I don't have any concerns, anything like that when it comes to Tennessee with Dylan Sampson at running back and their front seven. But the quarterback, the offensive line, the scheme, the offensive philosophy overall, which I've been telling you for 2 or 3 years, ain't nothing but a gimmick. And that's what it is. It's a gimmick. Heupel's offense is a gimmick, and it works against bad teams. That's it. But anyway, just listen to this. Nico has less passing yards this year than Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne, who's only played about half the time at Auburn. Why? Because he's so bad he keeps getting benched. But he's got more passing yards than Nico. Nico has the same number of passing touchdowns as Jackson Arnold, another freshman quarterback who was so bad he got benched 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And Nico's got the same number of touchdown passes as he. This guy hasn't played in 2 weeks. This Jackson Arnold. And he's got as many touchdown passes as Nico. Nico has less passing touchdowns than Blake Shapen. And you're sitting there going, who is Blake Shapen? That's a fair question. He used to be the Mississippi State quarterback. Then he got hurt. He hasn't played since September 21st. He hasn't played. Blake Shapen has not taken a snap since September 21st. He's got more passing touchdowns than Nico. And y'all are supposed to have all these amazing wide receivers like Squirrel White and Possum McCoy and Roadkill Nimrod and whoever the fuck. And this might be the worst one of all. Quarterback rating. Now, I'm not an X's and O's guy or an analyst guy or whatever. And I know that there are different quarterback ratings. Different publications, different groups, whatever, have different QBR ratings. Some go to 100, some go to 200. I get that, okay? So I just looked up the ESPN quarterback rating. So whatever you think about that system, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you. I don't know. I don't even know how to calculate a QBR. Neither do you. So don't even act like you do. Nico has a lower quarterback rating than Hank fucking Brown, the NPC at Auburn. That non-playable character. Hank fucking Brown. Nico's got a lower rating than he does. Reality has come crashing down on a tard man. 1998 is creeping up on you this season, buddy. One loss already to Arkansas. You got Bama this week. You got to go to Athens. And look, the reality is, yes, when you looked at Tennessee's schedule, you went Oklahoma, Georgia, Bama. Well, you've already played Oklahoma. And so you said, well, you just got Georgia and Bama. Once you lost to Arkansas, that was it. All bets are off the table now. You almost got beat by Florida. Yikes. Yikes. I picked you to make the playoffs, boy. It looks less likely right now, Uncle Lou. What'd you do yesterday? Good question. You won 23-17. Nico, 16 of 26, 169 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. That's not even Jake Fromm numbers. That's not even Jack Fromm numbers, my dude. That's not even Jack Fromm numbers. Graham Mertz was 11 of 15 for 125 yards, of touchdowns, and no interceptions until he got hurt. Tennessee did run the ball for 143, but 112 of that was Dylan Sampson. The rest of your team ran for 30 yards. Lagway came in for Florida and couldn't do shit. 9 of 17, 98 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. Each team turned the ball over twice. Florida missed a field goal in overtime. It was over at that point. Tennessee goes down. Dylan Sampson scores the game-winning touchdown. Y'all were celebrating like it was 1998. I don't blame you. That's about as close as you're going to get this year to 1998, ain't it? You're not winning the SEC and you're not winning a playoff game. You might still make the playoffs, but you got to go 10-2. Can you? Can you go 10-2? Does Nico have a backup y'all can try? He's hot fucking garbage, my guy. All right, that's it for the dud list. Thank God. And make sure I covered all the points I wanted to cover about this list of fucking deadbeats here. Pretty sure that I did. Pretty sure that I did. I've got a list of teams that won and looked good, list of teams that won and looked bad. I've got your Heisman list. I've got the updated Weird Back rankings. Best wins yesterday. Best teams yesterday. And I already did the Josh Pate thing with Ohio State, but don't worry. Don't worry, Oklahoma. He's going to do that for you, too. I also predict a serious Josh Pate head padding tonight for 3 teams that won yesterday but looked terrible. Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. I predict Josh Pate will rub all 3 of those fan bases' heads tonight and tell them that everything is going to be okay. On top of buttering up, of course, Oklahoma and Ohio State for their humiliating losses yesterday. All right, here's some teams that won and looked good, in my opinion. Vandy, 20-13 over Kentucky. At Kentucky. Scored more points than Georgia did there and beat them 20-13. And to me, what's even more impressive than that, they had the biggest win, arguably, in program history last week against Alabama. And this week was a classic letdown spot. Not just for Vandy, but for any team in Vandy's situation. A not great team that pulls off a monumental upset at home. You tear the goalpost down. The fans are partying. You know the team was celebrating. You probably patted yourself on the back half the week. Usually when that happens, you see a team come out and lay an egg the next week. Not Vandy. Went on the road and beat Kentucky 20-13. Wisconsin blew somebody out 42-7, 311 rush yards. It looks like Luke Fickell has abandoned his plan to modernize Wisconsin's offense and go with the air raid. Didn't throw the ball at all, but ran for 311 yards. Iowa 40-16 over Washington. Iowa with an offense? Scary proposition. Syracuse 24-17 over NC State. Not an overly impressive win. NC State's terrible, but I put it here because Syracuse, while we were sleeping, is 5-1. 5-1. Terrible for a long time. Brand new head coach, a lot of transfer players, and they're 5-1. Georgia Tech 41-32 over North Carolina. Again, not impressive really as far as the score goes because North Carolina's a terrible team. But the Georgia Tech fans wanted this win bad because they hate Jeff Collins. Jeff Collins was the coach there. He drove Georgia Tech into the ground, and he's now the DC at North Carolina, and they hate him. They can't stand him. So this was big for the Georgia Tech fans to get a win. Texas 34-3 over OU. Talked about that. Oregon, big win over Ohio State. I mean, a 1-point win, but this was a top 5 matchup of 2 legitimate top 5 teams. So good win for Oregon and Dan Lanning. Probably Dan Lanning's biggest win for sure. The LSU, 29-26 over Ole Miss. Mizzou, 45-3 over UMass, rebounding from a loss. Boise State continues to roll. They're only one loss, but it's to Oregon, which is a pretty good loss to have if you're going to have one. They won again, 28-7. BYU, 41-19 over Arizona. Again, while you were sleeping, BYU is 6-0. Iowa State undefeated. They win 28-16 on the road at West Virginia. Notre Dame steamrolled Stanford 49-7. Clemson continues to beat everybody they play, not named Georgia, by 40 points, 49-14 over Wake. Penn State 33-30 over Southern Cal. That's only a big win to me because it keeps the heat off of James Franklin. I don't think Southern Cal is a great team, and beating them by 3 isn't overly impressive, but we'll put it in that category. Illinois, bad wins here. One but looked bad. Illinois 50-49 over Purdue, who might be worse than Mississippi State. Pitt 17-15 win at home against Cal. Not overly impressive there. And then we've already talked about Georgia, Bama, and Tennessee, who all 3 won, but none covered the spread. None looked impressive. All looked downright bad in certain areas at times. And all 3 need to make massive improvements if they want to go anywhere in the postseason. So there you go with that. Heisman list. Miami didn't play this week. I'm not punishing Cam Ward for that. I've still got Cam Ward on my Heisman list. I've now got Dylan Gabriel on my Heisman list and Travis Hunter. Now he's hurt. And if he misses too much time, I'm going to have to take him off. That's why I don't have Quinn Ewers on here. You can't be missing 2 or 3 games. Heisman is a numbers award. And I've got Ashton Genty. Is that his name? Ashton Genty. Now, I'm going to have to see a group of 5 player actually win the Heisman to believe it. But this he's averaging over 200 yards a game. Some games he averages 15, 20 yards a carry. The guy's, if you haven't watched the Boise State game, just at least Google the highlights. The guy's unreal. He's a video game in real life. It's unbelievable. So I've got him on the list, but I'll have to see a group of 5 player win it before I'll truly believe it. Updated We're Back list. Now, no surprise here, Miami's number 1. They're a top 10 team, and they're undefeated. I've got Notre Dame back up to number 2. Humiliating loss. They got a worse loss than anybody on here. Northern Illinois. But they rebounded, and they're blowing people out now, and look at their schedule. There's nothing there except Army and Navy. Isn't it funny? If we've been making fun of Notre Dame for 20 years, oh, yeah, you winning all them national titles, beating up on the service academies. What if it's the service academies this year that end up keeping Notre Dame out of the playoffs? Army and Navy are both undefeated. God, that would be so funny. I hope that happens. I've got Tennessee at 3 and Florida at 4. Those are your We're Back rankings for this week. Best teams I saw yesterday: Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. I know Ohio State lost. I didn't see, other than Texas and Oregon, I didn't see a team play yesterday that looked better than Ohio State. Did you? I didn't. Indiana's undefeated. I don't think they look better than Ohio State. Pitt, no. Boise State, no. Georgia 5-1. They didn't look better than Ohio State yesterday. Bama, Tennessee, no. Now, Miami didn't play this past weekend, so can't put them on the best teams I saw this weekend list. I mean, those are the best 3 teams I saw play this weekend. I don't know what to tell you. Who's the best teams? The best wins yesterday? Vandy, obviously. Texas, Oregon. I think that was a big win for LSU and Brian Kelly. He's another one with a reputation of losing big games, and that keeps LSU's season alive. Again, we wrote LSU off after week 1. Here they are, 5-1. So, I don't know. We'll see. They play Bama coming up a couple weeks. Who would you take right now, LSU or Bama? Who would you take in that one? In Penn State, good win for our buddy James Franklin. These teams have no losses halfway through the season. Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Iowa State, BYU, Indiana, and Pitt. There are some undefeated group of 5 teams, Army, Navy. I'm talking top 25 rankings, Power 4 teams. Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Iowa State, BYU, Indiana, Pitt. No losses. 1-loss teams, Ohio State, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, LSU, Clemson, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Missouri, Kansas State, Illinois, SMU, Nebraska. Teams that eliminated themselves from the playoffs. Michigan, not getting in. Ole Miss. 2 losses, Ole Miss. Boy, I don't know. Your season is over list does not mean your season is technically over and all that, but it's getting down to the time now where we can start crossing some teams off the list. But anyway, there it is. Your season is over for week 7. Week 7 in the books. We're halfway through the season. Georgia and Texas play this coming up weekend. Alabama and Tennessee play a whole slate of great games. So, Lunch Money Show tomorrow night, Monday night, 10 p.m., me and Pigskin Pete. Call-in show Tuesday night at 9 p.m., Thursday night at 9 p.m. You give me a call Tuesday night, Thursday night, we'll talk some college football. And then we'll figure out a streaming schedule for Saturday. There it is. This week's pile of shit. Have a good morning.